There are small creatures in the natural world that seem simple at first glance, moving from flower to flower with quiet purpose, yet hidden within their tiny bodies lies an ability that feels almost impossible. Bees, with brains no larger than a sesame seed, are capable of recognizing and remembering human faces. When a bee observes a face, it does not see it as we do. Instead, it breaks the image into patterns, shapes, contrasts, and relationships between features. Over time, through repeated exposure, these patterns become familiar. Researchers discovered that bees can be trained to distinguish between different human faces, choosing one over another with surprising accuracy.
Even more fascinating, they do not simply memorize a single image. They learn the structure of a face, allowing them to recognize it again from slightly different angles or lighting conditions. In their small and silent way, bees remind us that intelligence is not measured by size. Even the smallest mind can carry a quiet awareness of the world, recognizing patterns, remembering shapes, and gently navigating through a reality far richer than it seems.
There is a quiet language inside the hive, one that does not rely on sound, yet carries precise meaning across the entire colony. When a bee returns from a successful search for nectar, it does something unexpected. Instead of simply sharing the food, it begins to move in a patterned rhythm, tracing small loops and lines across the surface of the hive. This movement, known as the waggle dance, encodes direction, distance, and even the richness of the food source. The angle of the dance relative to gravity mirrors the position of the sun in the sky. The duration of the movement reveals how far the flowers are. The intensity of the vibration tells other bees how valuable the discovery is. Watching closely, other bees absorb this information, then leave the hive, flying directly toward a place they have never seen before. In the soft darkness of the hive, without words, without maps, thousands of tiny bodies exchange knowledge through movement alone. It is a silent choreography where information flows not through sound, but through rhythm, turning motion into meaning. There is something almost invisible hidden inside every drop of honey, something so small that it is easy to overlook. Yet once you notice it, it changes the way you see it forever. A single bee, over the course of its entire life, produces only a tiny amount of honey, roughly 1/12 of a teaspoon. To create even that, it must visit thousands of flowers, flying back and forth across fields, carrying microscopic droplets of nectar again and again. Each journey is short, but together they form a lifetime of quiet effort. The bee gathers nectar, returns to the hive, passes it along, and repeats the process until its short life comes to an end. The honey you see is not the work of a moment, but the result of countless flights woven together into something lasting. So when you look at a spoon of honey, you are not just seeing sweetness, you are seeing the condensed story of thousands of journeys, a slow and patient transformation carried out by creatures that never rush yet never stop. There are colors in the world that exist all around us, quietly present, yet completely hidden from human sight. Bees move through this invisible layer of reality with ease. Their eyes are able to detect ultraviolet light, a spectrum beyond what we can see. Flowers that may appear simple to us are to a bee filled with glowing patterns, guiding lines, and radiant centers that point directly toward nectar. These patterns act like natural landing signals. Petals reflect ultraviolet light in specific ways, creating contrasts that form pathways, almost like glowing arrows leading inward. A flower becomes more than color. It becomes a map, designed to be read by those who know how to see it. So while we walk through fields thinking we understand what surrounds us, bees are navigating a richer world, layered just beyond our vision, where every flower carries hidden instructions written in light. There is a layer of the world that exists in complete silence, something you cannot see, cannot hear, and cannot feel. Yet for a bee, it is as real as color or scent. Flowers carry a faint electrical charge. As they stand in sunlight, interacting with the air and the ground, they build tiny electric fields around themselves. These fields change subtly, depending on whether the flower has recently been visited or still holds fresh nectar. As a bee approaches, its body, charged from flying through the air, interacts with this field. The difference is enough for the bee to sense whether the flower has already been visited by another insect or if it is still full of nectar. Without touching, without tasting, without landing, the bee already knows. It reads the invisible, moving through a world layered with signals we never notice. A silent conversation between plant and pollinator, written not in sound or light, but in electricity. There is a quiet compass guiding bees through the open sky, something that never makes a sound, yet always points the way. Bees use the position of the sun to navigate, but even when clouds cover the sky, they do not lose their direction. Their eyes can detect patterns of polarized light, subtle shifts in the sky that reveal where the sun is hidden. This allows them to maintain a straight path across long distances, returning to the hive with precision. Even when the light is soft and diffused, the sky still carries invisible signals, and the bee reads them effortlessly. While the world may seem uncertain from the ground, high above, the path is always there, quietly written across the sky. There is a quiet form of learning happening inside the hive, one that does not require instruction, only attention. Bees are able to observe the actions of other bees and repeat them. When one bee discovers a new way to access food, others can watch, remember, and later perform the same behavior themselves. This means knowledge can spread through the colony without direct experience. A bee can succeed not only through its own effort, but through what it has seen. Over time, these small observations turn into shared intelligence. In the soft movement of the hive, learning becomes something collective, passed gently from one to another through simple acts of watching. There is a quiet intelligence behind the movement of a bee, something that reveals itself only when you look a little closer. Bees are able to recognize patterns, shapes, and even simple relationships between objects. In experiments, they can learn to choose specific symbols, follow rules, and solve small tasks to receive a reward. They do not simply react, they compare, remember, and decide. A bee can look at two options, process the difference, and choose the one that leads to success. Over time, these small decisions become learned behavior. Inside a tiny brain, no larger than a seed, lives the ability to understand patterns, gently shaping behavior through experience. There is a quiet memory guiding a bee through open space, one that holds not just direction, but experience. When a bee finds a rich source of nectar, it does not forget. It remembers the exact location, the distance, and even the surrounding landmarks. Over time, the bee builds a mental map, connecting multiple flower patches into an efficient route. This allows it to move smoothly from one place to another, avoiding wasted energy and returning again and again to the most rewarding spots. Each journey refines the path, making it more precise with every flight. What may seem like random movement is in reality a carefully remembered path, shaped by experience and quietly perfected over time.
There is a quiet strength inside a bee that is easy to miss at first glance. Despite their small size, bees are able to carry loads that are equal to and sometimes greater than their own body weight. As they gather nectar and pollen, their bodies become heavier, yet they continue to fly with steady rhythm. Their wings beat rapidly, creating lift through precise movement, while their muscles work with remarkable efficiency. What seems fragile is, in reality, finely tuned for endurance. Even when weighed down, the bee continues its journey, moving through the air with calm persistence, carrying more than it should, yet never stopping.
A single bee does not act alone. Each one follows simple roles, yet together they create something far more complex. Some gather nectar, others care for larvae, others guard the entrance, and others regulate temperature inside the hive. No single bee controls the system, yet everything stays in balance. The hive breathes, adapts, and responds as if it has one shared awareness. When something changes, the entire colony adjusts without confusion or delay. What looks like many separate lives is in truth one continuous organism moving through the world in perfect coordination. A single bee does not act alone. Each one follows simple roles, yet together they create something far more complex. Some gather nectar, others care for larvae, others guard the entrance, and others regulate temperature inside the hive. No single bee controls the system, yet everything stays in balance. The hive breathes, adapts, and responds as if it has one shared awareness. When something changes, the entire colony adjusts without confusion or delay. What looks like many separate lives is in truth one continuous organism moving through the world in perfect coordination.
There is a moment when the calm rhythm of the hive shifts, not through sound, but through something far more subtle. When a bee senses danger,
it releases a specific scent into the air. This chemical signal spreads instantly, warning others nearby. The scent carries urgency, telling the colony that something is wrong. Other bees detect it almost immediately. Their behavior changes. They become alert, focused, ready to respond. What began as a single signal quickly becomes a shared state across many individuals. In this invisible layer of communication, danger moves faster than movement itself, spreading through the air as a silent message that the entire hive understands.
There is a quiet sense of time guiding a bee, something that does not tick or make a sound, yet remains incredibly precise. Bees are able to remember not only where flowers are, but also when they produce the most nectar. Some flowers release nectar at specific times of the day, and bees learn these patterns, returning exactly when the reward is highest. They adjust their internal rhythm to match the cycles of light and the behavior of plants. Without clocks, without signals we can hear, they move through time with accuracy, arriving at the right place at the right moment. What seems like simple flight is, in truth, perfectly timed movement, guided by an inner sense that quietly tracks the passing of the day.
There is a quiet way bees survive the cold, not by escaping it, but by becoming something together. When temperatures drop, bees gather into a tight cluster inside the hive. They press close to one another and begin to vibrate their flight muscles without flying, generating heat from within their bodies. The bees on the outside form a protective layer, while those inside stay warmer. Over time, they slowly rotate positions, allowing each bee to share warmth and survive the cold together. What looks like stillness is actually constant movement, a living system of heat, where thousands of small bodies become one source of warmth. There is a quiet precision inside the hive, something that looks simple, yet follows an almost perfect logic. Bees build their honeycomb using hexagonal cells. This shape is not random. It allows them to store the maximum amount of honey while using the least amount of wax. Every wall connects seamlessly, leaving no wasted space. The structure distributes weight evenly, making the comb strong and efficient at the same time. Each cell fits perfectly with the next, forming a repeating pattern that expands without breaking its balance. What seems like instinct becomes geometry, where every movement leads to a structure that is both beautiful and optimal. There is a quiet exchange inside the hive that happens again and again, unseen but essential. Bees pass food directly to one another through a process called trophallaxis. A bee returning with nectar does not keep it, it offers it mouth to mouth, allowing nutrients and chemical signals to spread through the colony. This exchange shares more than food. It distributes information about the outside world, helping the hive stay coordinated and balanced. What seems like a simple act becomes a network of constant connection, where energy and knowledge move together through every bee. There is a quiet layer of protection inside the hive. Bees collect tree resin and turn it into propolis, using it to seal cracks and cover surfaces. It helps stop bacteria and keeps the hive clean. This simple material becomes a natural shield, protecting the colony from within. There is a quiet way bees know who belongs. Each bee carries a specific scent that marks it as part of the hive. Guards at the entrance detect this instantly, allowing some in while stopping others. A single scent decides who is home and who is not. There is a quiet order inside the hive, where even after life ends, care continues. Worker bees carry dead bees out of the hive, removing anything that could cause decay or disease. This keeps the colony clean and stable. Even in stillness, the hive maintains its balance. There is a quiet intelligence that emerges when bees act together. When searching for a new home, bees explore different locations, then return and share information. Over time, the colony converges on the best choice. Many small voices become one clear decision. There is a quiet choice behind every landing. Bees can sense how sweet nectar is before fully collecting it, choosing flowers that offer more energy. This helps them use less effort for greater reward. Each flight becomes a careful decision. There is a quiet endurance in every journey. A bee can travel several kilometers in search of nectar, moving across fields and landscapes before returning home. Even small wings can carry long paths. There is a quiet sensitivity in the smallest movements. Bee antennae detect zape, vibrations, and air changes, helping them understand their surroundings and communicate. Through them, the invisible becomes clear. There is a quiet signal carried through touch. Bees sense vibrations through their legs, detecting movement inside the hive and signals from other bees. The ground itself becomes a message. There is a quiet evolution within a bee's life. A worker bee changes roles over time, starting inside the hive and later moving outside to forage. Its purpose shifts as it grows. There is a quiet response when the colony needs change. Bees can raise a new queen by feeding a larva special nutrition, transforming its development. From the same beginning, a different future emerges. There is a moment when the hive begins again. A group of bees leaves with a queen, forming a swarm that searches for a new home. What seems like chaos becomes a new beginning. There is a quiet pause between journeys. During swarming, bees gather into a hanging cluster, holding on to each other while scouts search for a new place. They wait together in stillness. There is a quiet impact far beyond the hive. By pollinating plants, bees support the growth of flowers, fruits, and entire ecosystems. Their work connects life across the planet. Deep inside a bee, a subtle process turns energy into structure, almost like something invisible becoming real over time. Worker bees create wax using special glands along their abdomen, forming tiny pale flakes that appear on the surface of their bodies. They carefully collect these flakes, soften them with warmth, and shape them using their legs and jaws into precise forms. What begins as something almost weightless slowly becomes the strong and ordered architecture of the hive, built piece by piece from within. On warmer days, when the air inside the hive begins to rise, bees rely on a simple yet remarkably effective method to restore balance. They travel outside to collect small droplets of water, carrying them back with quiet persistence. Once inside, other bees begin to fan their wings, creating a steady flow of air. As the water slowly evaporates, it cools the surrounding space, lowering the temperature gently and evenly. This shared effort allows the hive to remain stable, even under intense heat. Far beyond what we are able to perceive, bees move through a world shaped by signals hidden from human senses. One of these is the Earth's magnetic field, a constant force that surrounds the planet. Bees are able to detect this field and use it as an additional guide during flight. When visual cues fade or become unclear, this invisible reference helps them stay oriented. Combined with light, memory, and landmarks, it forms a quiet navigation system that supports their movement across distance. When approaching a field of flowers, bees do not choose at random. Their decisions follow subtle visual cues. They are naturally drawn to symmetry, preferring balanced shapes that often indicate richer nectar sources. This ability allows them to reduce uncertainty and move more efficiently from one flower to another. Even the smallest differences in structure can influence their choice, guiding them towards the most rewarding paths with quiet precision. As the air begins to shift and currents move unpredictably, bees adjust without hesitation, maintaining control through constant micro-movements. Their bodies tilt slightly, their wings change rhythm, and their speed adapts to the flow of wind. These adjustments happen continuously, allowing them to stay stable even in unstable conditions. What appears effortless is actually a constant response to the environment, keeping their flight smooth and accurate. A single bee carries more than just direction in its memory. It holds a network of places connected through experience. It can remember several flower patches at once, linking them into a route that reduces distance and saves energy. With each journey, this path becomes more refined, shaped by repetition and success. Over time, what forms is a simple but efficient map, guiding the bee through familiar spaces with increasing accuracy. Not every discovery inside the hive carries the same importance, and bees have a quiet way of expressing this difference. When a bee returns and performs its dance, the strength and duration of its movement reflect the value of the food source. Other bees observe closely, interpreting the intensity as a signal of quality. This allows the colony to direct its efforts toward the most beneficial locations, creating a flow of energy guided by shared understanding. When the environment becomes harsh or resources grow limited, bees shift their behavior in a way that protects the entire colony. Movement slows, unnecessary activity fades, and energy is carefully conserved. Only essential functions continue, allowing the hive to endure without strain. This quiet reduction is not weakness, but adaptation, a way of extending survival through stillness and restraint until conditions improve again. Over time, bees begin to form preferences based on their own experience, shaping their behavior through memory. They learn which flowers provide the most nectar and return to them repeatedly, avoiding less rewarding options. Each visit strengthens this pattern, making their movement more efficient and focused. What begins as exploration becomes understanding, and understanding becomes habit. From a single interaction between a bee and a flower, a much larger chain of life begins to unfold. Through pollination, bees support the growth of plants that produce fruits, seeds, and nourishment for countless species. These plants, in turn, sustain animals, landscapes, and entire ecosystems. The work of a bee extends far beyond its size, quietly connecting living systems into one continuous cycle that supports life across the planet. Inside the hive, there is a substance that carries far more than sweetness, something carefully created to feed future generations. Bees produce royal jelly, a nutrient-rich secretion that is given to all larvae in their earliest stage. But when a larva is fed exclusively with this substance, its development changes completely. It grows into a queen, larger, longer living, and capable of reproduction. From the same beginning, a different path quietly unfolds. Across long distances and unfamiliar landscapes, bees rely not only on instinct, but on memory shaped by experience. As they explore, they begin to recognize landmarks such as trees, shapes, shadows, and patterns in the environment. These visual markers become reference points, helping them return with accuracy. Over time, the world around them transforms into a map built from repeated journeys and quiet observation. Inside the hive, darkness does not limit awareness. Instead, it shifts the way bees communicate. Without relying on vision, they use touch and vibration to understand each other. Antennae move gently, bodies make contact, and subtle movements carry meaning. In this space, information travels through sensation rather than sight, creating a different kind of clarity within the colony. As seasons change and flowers become less abundant, bees adjust not only their behavior, but also their consumption. They begin to rely more heavily on stored honey, using it carefully to sustain the colony. Each movement becomes more measured, each action more intentional. This balance between use and preservation allows the hive to endure periods when resources are no longer easily found. Within a single flight, a bee constantly evaluates its surroundings, making small adjustments based on light, distance, and memory. It does not follow a fixed path, but instead adapts in real time, refining its movement as it goes. This flexibility allows it to respond to changes quickly, maintaining efficiency even in unpredictable conditions. At the entrance of the hive, a subtle form of protection is always present, carried out by guard bees. These bees monitor incoming individuals, detecting scent and behavior before allowing entry. Their role is not aggressive by default, but responsive, maintaining safety through awareness. This quiet vigilance helps protect the colony from threats without disrupting its natural flow. Within the structure of the hive, space is not random, but carefully organized to support different functions. Some areas are used for storing honey, others for pollen, and others for raising larvae. This arrangement allows the colony to operate efficiently, with each section serving a specific purpose. The hive becomes a system where structure and function are closely aligned. As bees move from flower to flower, they also carry microscopic particles that influence plant reproduction. Pollen attaches to their bodies and is transferred between plants, enabling fertilization. This process supports not only individual plants, but entire populations, allowing ecosystems to grow and regenerate over time. Even in moments of rest, bees remain connected to the rhythm of the hive. Their stillness is not complete inactivity, but a state of reduced movement that allows recovery. Energy is restored, systems reset, and readiness returns gradually. This balance between activity and rest supports long-term stability within the colony. Through countless small actions repeated over time, bees shape the environment around them. Their presence influences plant growth, supports biodiversity, and contributes to the continuity of life across ecosystems. What they do is subtle, often unnoticed, yet deeply woven into the balance of the natural world. At the edge of perception, bees are able to sense changes in light that happen too quickly for humans to notice. As clouds pass or the angle of sunlight shifts, they adjust their behavior almost instantly. This sensitivity allows them to respond to subtle changes in their environment, keeping their movement aligned with the conditions around them. Within the hive, air is never still for long, even when everything seems calm. Bees constantly create gentle currents by moving their wings, circulating air through narrow passages. This airflow helps regulate temperature, remove excess moisture, and maintain a stable internal environment where life can continue uninterrupted. Each time a bee lands on a flower, its body becomes a bridge between two living systems. Pollen grains cling to fine hairs covering its surface, carried effortlessly from one plant to another. This transfer happens quietly, yet it supports the reproduction of countless species, allowing ecosystems to renew themselves season after season. Inside the hive, roles are not fixed in a rigid way, but instead shift in response to need. If the colony requires more foragers, some bees begin to transition outward. If care is needed inside, others remain. This flexibility allows the colony to adapt continuously, maintaining balance without any central control. Even the smallest vibration inside the hive carries meaning. When bees move across the honeycomb, their steps create tiny signals that others can detect. These vibrations help coordinate activity, allowing the colony to function as a connected system where movement itself becomes communication. As bees travel across long distances, they conserve energy by optimizing their flight paths. Instead of wandering randomly, they follow routes that minimize effort while maximizing reward. Each journey refines their movement, shaping patterns that become more efficient over time. When a bee discovers a particularly rich source of nectar, its behavior subtly changes, even before it returns to the hive. Its movements become more focused, more direct, reflecting the value of what it has found. This shift carries forward into how it communicates, influencing the actions of others. Within the hive, warmth is not evenly distributed by chance, but actively managed. Bees move between areas, carrying heat with them and adjusting their positions. This constant redistribution helps maintain the precise conditions needed for development and survival. As seasons shift and daylight changes, bees adjust their internal rhythms to match the environment. Their activity levels, foraging patterns, and behavior align with these natural cycles, allowing them to stay in harmony with the world around them. Across all of these small actions, repeated thousands of times each day, a larger pattern begins to emerge.
The hive becomes more than a collection of individuals. It becomes a system shaped by rhythm, adaptation, and quiet coordination, sustained through countless subtle interactions.
When a bee approaches a flower, it does not rely on sight alone, but combines multiple senses to make its decision. It evaluates scent, shape, light patterns, and even subtle electrical signals before landing. This layered perception allows it to choose efficiently, avoiding wasted effort. What appears to be a simple landing is actually the result of several small evaluations happening almost instantly. Inside the hive, humidity is just as important as temperature, and bees actively regulate it. By controlling airflow and distributing moisture through collected water, they maintain conditions that prevent the comb from drying out or becoming too damp. This balance protects both stored food and developing larvae, creating an environment where everything can remain stable over time. Each bee carries with it a unique chemical signature that changes slightly over its lifetime. This scent allows others to recognize not only membership in the colony, but also role and condition. Through these subtle variations, bees maintain awareness of one another, allowing coordination to happen without confusion or delay. As a bee flies, its body constantly adjusts to gravity, air resistance, and movement. It senses changes through tiny receptors, allowing it to maintain balance and orientation even during long journeys. These adjustments happen continuously, keeping the flight stable and controlled, even when external conditions shift. Within the hive, energy flows in cycles, moving from nectar to honey and then to the bees themselves. This stored energy is carefully managed, used when needed, and conserved when possible. Every drop represents effort, time, and coordination, supporting the colony through changing conditions and seasons. When bees encounter unfamiliar environments, they begin by exploring cautiously. They move in wider, less direct paths, gradually building an understanding of the new space. Over time, these movements become more refined, turning uncertainty into familiarity through repeated exposure. Even the structure of the hive responds to pressure and weight. Bees adjust the thickness and placement of wax as needed, reinforcing areas that carry more load. This ongoing maintenance keeps the structure stable, allowing it to support both stored resources and the movement of thousands of individuals.
As bees interact with flowers, they also influence the timing of plant reproduction. By visiting certain plants more frequently, they increase the chances of successful pollination. This interaction shapes not only individual plants, but entire populations, subtly guiding growth patterns across ecosystems. During flight, bees use optic flow, the movement of visual patterns across their field of view, to judge distance and speed.
As the ground moves beneath them, they adjust their motion accordingly. This allows them to land accurately and navigate efficiently without needing precise measurements. Across all of these behaviors, one pattern remains constant. Small adjustments repeated over time lead to stability. Bees do not rely on a single action, but on many subtle corrections that together create balance. This continuous refinement allows the colony to function smoothly, even in changing conditions. As a bee prepares to land, it does not simply drop onto a flower, but carefully slows itself, using subtle adjustments in its wings and body. The changing visual flow beneath it allows the bee to measure distance with precision, reducing speed at just the right moment. Its legs extend forward, ready to make contact, and the landing happens smoothly, almost without disturbance. What seems effortless is actually a finely tuned coordination between vision, motion, and control. Within the hive, bees regulate not only temperature and humidity, but also the distribution of space. As the colony grows, they expand the honeycomb structure, adding new cells where needed. This expansion is not random, but guided by the needs of the colony, ensuring that storage, development, and movement all remain balanced. The hive evolves over time, adapting its form to match its function. When a bee collects nectar, it stores it in a special organ called the honey stomach, separate from its own digestive system. This allows the bee to transport nectar without using it for energy. Once back in the hive, the nectar is passed to other bees, gradually transformed through enzymes and evaporation into honey. This process turns a temporary resource into something stable and long-lasting. As bees move between flowers, they begin to develop preferences not only for location, but also for certain types of plants. These preferences are shaped by previous success, guiding them toward sources that provide consistent rewards. Over time, this selective behavior increases efficiency, allowing the colony to focus on the most productive areas. Inside the hive, bees maintain a delicate balance between activity and rest. While some are working, others remain still, conserving energy and recovering. This constant exchange ensures that the colony never exhausts itself, maintaining a steady rhythm of effort and renewal that supports long-term survival. When a bee encounters a new type of flower, it does not immediately understand how to access its nectar. Instead, it explores, trying different approaches until it succeeds. Once learned, this method can be repeated and even shared indirectly with others. This ability to learn through interaction allows bees to adapt to a wide variety of environments. Throughout their lives, bees adjust their sensitivity to different stimuli. Younger bees respond more to signals inside the hive, while older bees become more attuned to the outside world. This shift allows them to take on different roles as they age, aligning their behavior with the needs of the colony at each stage. As bees move through dense environments, such as fields or forests, they constantly adjust their path to avoid obstacles. These adjustments are smooth and continuous, allowing them to navigate complex spaces without stopping.
Their flight becomes a flowing movement shaped by the environment around them. Within the hive, bees maintain a constant awareness of the queen's presence through chemical signals she releases. These signals help regulate behavior, keeping the colony stable and coordinated. Even without direct contact, her influence spreads through the hive, shaping its activity. Across all of these processes, a deeper pattern becomes clear. Bees do not rely on a single form of intelligence, but on many small systems working together. Perception, memory, communication, and adaptation all combine, creating a form of collective awareness that allows the colony to function as a unified whole.
As a bee moves between light and shadow, it constantly adjusts how it perceives the world around it. Changes in brightness alter how flowers appear, and the bee responds by refining its approach. This ability to adapt its perception allows it to continue navigating effectively even when conditions shift, maintaining a steady connection with its environment. Inside the hive, time is not measured in minutes, but in cycles of activity. Bees move between tasks in repeating patterns, guided by internal rhythms and external cues. These cycles create a flow where work, rest, and care follow one another naturally, forming a continuous sequence that supports stability over long periods.
When a bee drinks nectar, it begins a process that extends far beyond a single moment. Enzymes start to break down sugars even before the nectar reaches the hive. This transformation continues through shared processing, gradually turning a simple liquid into a stable source of energy that can be stored and used over time. As bees interact with different flowers, they also influence the genetic diversity of plants. By transferring pollen between individuals, they help mix genetic material, strengthening plant populations. This process increases resilience, allowing plants to adapt and survive across changing conditions. Within the hive, bees maintain awareness of space through constant contact and movement.
They sense the presence of others, adjusting their position to avoid overcrowding, while still remaining connected. This dynamic balance allows thousands of individuals to share a confined space without disruption. When bees fly under changing weather conditions, such as shifting wind or temperature, they adjust not only their movement, but also their energy use. They may shorten flights, choose closer resources, or delay activity altogether. These decisions help preserve energy and maintain efficiency when conditions are less favorable. As the colony grows, the distribution of tasks becomes more refined. Bees begin to specialize based on need, creating a balance between exploration, maintenance, and care. This specialization emerges naturally, without instruction, guided by the demands of the hive. Inside each interaction, whether brief or repeated, bees exchange subtle cues that influence behavior. These cues may be chemical, physical, or based on movement. Yet together they form a continuous flow of information. Through this, the colony remains synchronized without direct control. When a bee returns to the hive after a long journey, it transitions smoothly from flight to stillness. Its body slows, its movement softens, and it becomes part of the internal rhythm once again. This shift between states allows energy to be conserved and redistributed efficiently.
Across the lifespan of a bee, every action contributes to something larger than itself. From collecting nectar to maintaining the hive, each movement supports the continuity of the colony. The individual life becomes part of a larger pattern that extends beyond time. Through all of these processes, a deeper truth quietly appears. The hive is not just a place, but a living system shaped by countless small interactions. Each bee, each movement, each exchange contributes to a balance that is constantly maintained, never fixed, yet always present.